mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
At Bexar County Jail in San Antonio, Texas, the biggest problem isn't the murderers or the drug dealers. It's the gangbangers.
Modern-day Egypt lives side by side with remnants from the times of the
They've
pharaohs.
turned Bexar into a
Giant
battleground.
statues. The pyramids that adorn the left bank of the Nile,
Where
the
rivals
sunsets.
face off behind bars.
The magnificent
really is a
temples
power
such as
struggle.
those in Karnak
And
and
everyone is
Luxor,
pushed to the edge.
built by the hard labor of
war.
hundreds of thousands of workers.
The inmates caught in the
Still
crossfire.
But what is left is only
The
a
officers
fraction
trying to
of what the
maintain
giant
control.
cities must have
Fractured
been.
skulls, broken arms, broken ribs. It
So
happens.
why, in
In the
spite of the
volatile
skill
world
of
of
these
Bexar County
ancient
Jail,
builders, has
is
so
gang
little of these
in
ancient
San Antonio.
cities survived
We'll
until
kill you.
today? The answer lies in the importance attributed to the buildings.
But the
While
past decade
temples and
has seen the
pyramids
rise
were
of a splinter
destined
group
to
behind
withstand
bars.
the onslaught of
The
centuries,
gang known as the
ordinary
Tango
people
Border
under
Home.
the pharaohs had to make do with crude mud bricks and straw dried in the
These
sun.
inmates used to do the
Techniques
dirty
that
work
are
for the
still in
Mexican
use
mafia.
today.
Now they want to run the jail.
And yet, these
We've
were
been seeing an
magnificent
uprise
cities,
in the
such
Tango
as
Border
Memphis, the pharaoh's
Currently
first
in this
capital.
jail, we have over 700
We know about
confirmed
these
members
cities
of the Tango
because of the
Border Home,
legacy
but
of
they're recruiting on a
scribes,
daily basis.
writers,
By this
at
time
that
next year,
time.
we could be well into the thousands.
This sculpture of a scribe from the Cairo Museum is an example of a man who could have lived his entire life in one of those crowded city streets at the time of the pharaohs.
Informant Payaso is from the
Scribes
Tango
were
Border
highly
Home.
respected figures in ancient
He
Egypt.
started as a foot soldier in
Years
the
of
Mexican
study taught
mafia's
them to
highly
master
regimented
the art
army.
of writing
I
hieroglyphics,
got locked up when I was
and they enjoyed
16
privileges and
for
honors
aggravated
reserved
assault.
for
They ended
upper
up joining the
classes.
Tango Border Home. We
Writing
used to
was
be
beyond
under
the scope of the
Mexican
great
mafia.
majority
They
of
had
the
to do
population,
their dirty work.
and was thus shrouded
Whatever
in
they wanted us
mystery.
to do, we would do.
Scribes made
Tired
up
of
a
following
unique
the mafia's
profession.
orders, they
Many
decided
of
to
them
split
earned
off
their
about
living
10
by
years
writing
ago.
out and copying public
That's
and
when we split up,
administrative
we won
documents.
Wilton, and we stood strong and finally broke off.
The Nile River
More
was
and
the
more of the
lifeline
border
of
homes are
ancient
young
Egypt
and aggressive.
and the home of most of the important cities.
Answering to no
Memphis,
authority at all,
just a few miles south of
which
Cairo,
makes them even
was
more
the first
dangerous.
capital of the pharaohs. The road sign indicates the village of Mitrahina, announcing that we
To
have
cope with the
arrived at
growing
the
gang
gates of the
problem,
capital.
the jail has decided to segregate the enemy.
It is difficult to imagine that such
To
a
house each
desolate
gang in its
spot
own
could have
separate
been the
pods,
heart of
spread
one
over
of the
the 6
largest
floors
and
of the
richest
facility.
cities in the ancient world.
Our concept
Yet,
is if we have to house them
4,000
somewhere,
years
let's
ago,
house them in a place
there
where
were
we're gonna have the
majestic
least amount of
palaces
problems.
and temples here,
If we segregate them, take
surrounded
them
by
out of
intricate
population,
maze of
contain them
houses
there,
and streets.
we tend to be a lot more
Memphis
reductive
was home to some of the greatest minds of the era.
We also
Brilliant
were able to
scientists
learn
and
more
refined
about them.
sculptors,
And there's the old
artists
saying,
that
know your
created
enemy.
this alabaster sphinx, or this statue of Ramses II, one of the most impressive
But
in
it's
all
not
Egypt,
always easy to figure out
buried
where
under
new
the
arrivals
sands
belong,
for thousands of years.
especially guys like Jose Angel Santos.
Nowadays, nothing remains of the ancient splendors of Memphis beyond
He's a
this
Tango
simple
Border Home
village,
who wants out of
which
gang
is
life
surrounded
completely.
by the desert and a few
I'm an
date
ex-member.
plantations.
I just came to realize that
What
I didn't want
became
any
of this
part of it.
powerful
I
metropolis,
didn't want to make this a
founded by
lifestyle,
King
so
Menes
I
in
just decided to
3100
get out of
BC.
it.
I saw a lot of foul things happen. I had my share of riots. And
This is what
I did what I had
remains
to
of
do
the
to get
Temple
by.
of Ptah, thought to have been one of the largest in ancient
To get
Egypt.
out of the border homes, you have
Much
to
of it
subject
is still
yourself to at
buried
least
under the
one
small
beating.
hill where the
Say,
village of
beating from 2 to 3
Mitrahina lies today.
individuals for a period of 2 to 5
The
minutes.
problem is, when Memphis went into
depending
decline,
on
its
the
monuments
person
were
in charge
dismantled,
at the moment.
and the stones were used
But
as
in
building
Jose's case,
material for
the
new
beatings have
construction.
never stopped.
On several occasions, I got jumped. On others, you
In
know,
the distance,
I had
you can
just
see one of
fought
the many
one-on-one.
temples that
They
adorned
wouldn't leave me
Memphis in a
alone
later
because I
period.
was an ex-member.
And this is how the capital itself might have looked
A
if it
five-time
attempted to
offender
cross the
recently
bustling
arrested on
streets
drug
of the
charges.
city center
Jose is
over
depressed to find himself
4,000
back in
years ago.
It's been
As
hard.
scribes have
It's been a hard
indicated,
year.
bakeries
There's
were an
just so
important
much
part of
coming
life
at
at that
I didn't
time.
know how to act.
If you needed bread in the morning, you would have gone to a bakery
Jose's
like this
trying
one
to pull himself
and bought
together,
a very
but he's
special
worried.
tasting bread.
Will he be attacked again?
Bakers would remove the soft inside part of the loaf and sprinkle it with vinegar and water. Then the hollowed-out loaf would be stuffed with a mixture made of pepper, honey, mint,
Tuesday, 3
coriander,
p.m.
cheese, salt, and
A
oil.
code 2 is called.
The oven
Officer
stood
in
in
need
the
of
courtyard
assistance.
of the baker's workshop.
A fight between inmates in one of
Bartering
the
was the
Autohome
sales
units.
method used, as money wasn't introduced until 500 BC, many years later.
CERT moves into action.
If you had to get some official papers signed, you would have to
A
go
SWAT
to the
team
residence
behind
of a
bars.
high state official,
It's
who
CERT's
probably
goal to
lived in a
arrive within 90
luxurious and
seconds,
prestigious
hopefully
house
before any
like this one.
serious damage can be done.
In the large dining room, you probably have a display of exquisite vases, jars, and furniture, a mark of the taste and status of their owner.
3 Autohomes have jumped one of their own over a perceived
The higher
slight.
social classes loved to surround themselves with exquisite objects.
According to the
and
officers,
wore
when
elegant
Autohomes
clothing,
feel
complete with
disrespected,
wigs
they
and
respond with
jewelry.
violence.
Perfumes and cosmetics were also widely used by men. It was the custom to wear a cone of ointment on one's head, which melted in the heat of the day, saturating wigs and garments with perfume. In homes like this one, owners entertained their guests with sumptuous banquets. But
Sergeant
what
Avila
types
is in
of
charge
food
of
and
this
drink would
SRT
be
unit.
served at the table of a rich Egyptian?
He knows how
What was
tough
their
this jail
diet?
can be.
Since
This is the
Egyptians
most violent
aspired
place
to
you can
reach the
work.
grand old
I've
age
been
of
stabbed in the head
110,
before, you know.
the
Thank God I had a
recommended
helmet
diet
on.
was
You
varied
don't know if the
and
first guy's going
sensible.
to start stabbing you as opposed to getting on the ground.
They ate 3
is
meals a
adrenaline
day,
involved? Most definitely.
a snack in the
That fear,
morning
it's there,
and
you just
another
have to
toward
control it.
midday, and then the main meal, which corresponds to
A
our
10-year
dinner.
veteran, Avila
There was no
understands the
cutlery.
importance of an
Even the
organized
pharaoh and his
response
family
when
ate
chaos breaks
using their
out.
fingers, though it was considered good manners to use only the
CERT
3
team was
fingers of the right
developed and
hand.
created in order to be able to respond, organized,
Then as
trained,
now, bread was
prepared.
produced in a number of different varieties,
When an inmate
and it
blockades
was
his
kneaded
door,
by using
SRT
hands
can handle
or
tricky
even
cell
feet.
extractions like this because they're
Despite
ready
the
to come
attention
down
paid to
hard
their
if they need
diets,
to.
the ancient Egyptians were
But
found to
extracting
have
inmate is
bad
violent,
teeth.
and so be it. He should have done what he
Archaeological
was told. That
studies
wouldn't
of
have happened.
numerous mummies have proved this. But how could they have good diets and bad teeth? The answer, surprisingly enough, was due to the bread. Since it was produced with
When you send
stone
inmates to
ground
the hospital,
flour, it
broken,
contained
fractured
high
skulls,
quantities
broken
of
arms, broken
sand.
ribs, torn
Not something
ears,
you want to
broken
crunch
eye
on.
socket. It
If you
happens,
had
the
problems
inmate
with your
gets treated
teeth,
the way he
you
acts.
would
I
have to
tell
go
inmates that
to
all
a
the time.
dentist,
If you
a
act like a jerk,
profession
you're
that
gonna
was
get
in
treated
great
like a jerk.
demand at that time. The Egyptians loved their vegetables.
Avila is not only a
Garlic,
CERT
onions,
sergeant.
cucumbers, turnips, and lettuce.
He's also the
These were
supervisor of the
believed to
second
make
floor,
men
where
amorous
mafia
and
and
women
Autohome members
fertile.
are housed.
They also ate large amounts of seeds from chickpeas, broad beans, and lentils, which were exported
This
all
whole
over the
floor is like a little
Mediterranean.
city. I have almost 1,000
Their favorite
people
fruits
on
were
just this
figs,
floor that I
pomegranates,
supervise.
and
That's
dates.
what I'm in charge of. I'm like the mayor.
Close your doors behind you.
Roast or grilled beef
This
was
floor
considered a delicacy,
has 12 units in it.
though the
8 of them
preference
are
was
locked
for
down,
birds such as
which
geese,
means the
ducks,
inmates' house here
quail,
only come out
pigeons,
1 hour a day.
and even
It's a
pelicans,
very busy
which
place.
were also eaten by poorer people.
The biggest issue for Avila on the second floor? The tango.
On the
Autohome.
other hand, it seems that chickens
Unlike
never
the Mexican
appeared on the
mafia,
tables of the
they
pharaohs
follow
and
no
their
rules.
subjects.
You know, we have several gangs in this jail, lots of gang members. But
Wine
the Tango
and
of the Horns
strong
are the ones
beer
that are
were
causing
served
us
at
the most
dinner.
grief right now.
The wine was kept in
They
sealed
have
pitchers
no
that had
laws,
labels
they have
showing
no
its
rules, they
name,
don't abide by
origin,
anything.
and vintage.
These are just people who have
These
banded
labels
together
are some of the
for
most
protection,
curious
so they
written
say. They've
documents
actually
of the
become
ancient
aggressors
world.
now.
Represent that 15. That keep it.
The invention of writing took place around 3000 BC. As it spread, it allowed for organization of
Autohome unit on the
files and
second
record
floor.
keeping within
Gang
the
members are
country
meeting
for the
to
first
discuss their
time.
next moves.
Early writing was derived mainly
They'll
from
only
the
talk to the media
observation
as
of
a group.
nature. Called hieroglyphics, it
They
was a
opened up
writing
this tank
system
about a
that
month ago.
aimed to represent
Nothing but what we
ideas
wanted.
by means of
Something that went
drawings.
down between the Mexican mafia and us.
The word scribe, for example,
They
was
separated us all
composed
and
of the
opened up this
hieroglyphic
tank for us. Now
zesh.
there's more than, I think there's about
It
2 or 3
portrayed a
tanks now just
scribe's
for
work
us, what we wanted.
utensils, a palette with slots for red and black pigment, a jar or water sample, a reed pen or a tool for smoothing papyrus,
They say the
all
Tango
tied up
Autohome does
together.
everything by consensus.
We don't gotta be under nobody, you know. I mean, we're
Thanks
our own
to
group
this
and
writing system
we stand our
and to
own.
the cursive version, hieratic
No
script,
leaders, no gang
we can
structure.
understand the
It's a fine
Egyptians'
line
myths,
between democracy
fables,
and
and
anarchy.
scientific texts,
A line the
along with their
Autohomes frequently
novels,
cross.
travel journals, and adventure stories.
Basically,
The first adventure story in history is Egyptian, the story of Sinuhe, which was written more than 3,000 years ago. Egyptians had a strong sense of family, and women enjoyed a great deal of authority. The most common demonstration of affection was rubbing noses, but kissing was rare. Marriage was very important in ancient Egypt. A pharaoh could have more than one wife, and if he had the chance, lots of concubines. The man's goal was to give at least one child to each woman in his family. This is why Ramses II, one of the greatest Egyptian pharaohs, whose mummy is at the Cairo Museum,
Rodriguez is talking with two longtime members of the Mexican Mafia, Mike and Alfonso.
If you were looking for a lover
to leave
and
the
find
gang
your
for
way
good,
into their heart
to
by
leave their
regular
bloody
means,
past behind.
you could resort to magic.
So I'm assuming he's with the
Egyptians believed firmly
There's
in
a guy
magic
named,
powers.
They call it
There
Chong.
were magic
Mike and
cures
Alfonso
for
have
illnesses,
learned over the years that the
formulas
Mexican
to ward
Mafia
off
is
the
highly
evil eye,
structured.
You read his
and
nephew?
love potions.
Now he's supposedly the one in charge over here.
Yeah.
He's not a puppet.
Further down the Nile is
Unlike the
Luxor,
unruly
about
Orahun,
440
the Mafia
miles
is a
south
kind
of
of criminal
Cairo.
corporation, doing business
Today
in
it is a
drugs,
quiet
extortion,
place with
and
boats
murder.
skimming over the calm river waters
It's all
and the
about
narrow
following
streets of the
orders.
bazaar crossed by
If they
horse-drawn
call me at 3 in
cabs
the morning, I'm
popular
gonna have
with
to get up and
tourists.
go, no questions asked.
You got people coming out.
Luxor
every
is the
day,
site of
going
the
in,
ancient Egyptian
coming out,
city of
day in, day out of the
Thebes,
Texas Department of
once the
Corrections.
most powerful city in the world.
Contract hits.
Thebes was made capital instead of Memphis after its princes drove off the Hyksos people who had invaded Egypt around 1500 BC.
We pick up anywhere from
Thebes,
5 to 20
the
to 30
city
to
of 100
$40,000
gates.
a week.
You know, nice cars, nice this, nice that.
A city where only the
nice
grains of
chains.
desert
I mean,
sand exceeded the riches
$1,000 in my
that its
pocket,
500,000
7 days a week.
inhabitants
You know,
had
I spend
accumulated.
$1,000 a day, not think twice.
Unlike Memphis,
I mean, can you
Thebes has not
imagine
disappeared
somebody-
But the
completely.
perks come at a price.
Amongst the
They
modern
have to
buildings,
carry out the
you
green
can
lights,
still see
the killings,
temples,
each and every
avenues of
time they're ordered
sphinxes,
to.
and other
People
imposing
out there in the world,
structures of
they
its
can't
magnificent
grasp. They don't
past.
understand how can this guy go kill this guy or stab this guy or beat up this guy just because
The
next guy
remains of
told
the
him to?
temple dedicated to the god Amun
I've
bear
been with so
witness
many
to this.
of my bros. The
They
guy
were
at the funeral
restored
home,
by
he-
archaeological studies
first name
at the end
basis.
of the 19th
So
century,
then one day,
with the demolition
my
of
uncle
hundreds of houses that had been
died,
built
and the guy
over
tells me,
them.
he goes, oh no,
Some of
man,
the
I'm gonna get
excavations
this
are
guy
still
because he
going
brought me
on.
So much
A
business.
15th century mosque still
And it
occupies
was
part
like-
of the first courtyard.
A lot of people were killed. You know, I thought in the back of my mind, you know.
Yeah, Peter probably to tell you, but
The temple lies parallel to the Nile.
And I
Its
was like,
dimensions
one
are
of those
truly
moments,
majestic,
like, he goes,
over
oh, no,
800
man,
feet
I'm gonna
long
charge you
and
50% on the
200 feet
coffin,
wide.
And I'm gonna, you know, the flowers are gonna be free. You know, the spray that we have to over the coffin is gonna be free. And I'm thinking, man, have I been to this place that many times?
On this
Mike and
occasion, the
Alfonso soured
statue
on
of
the
Amun
Mexican
left
Mafia
its more
when they
permanent
saw their
residence
friends
in
get
the
killed.
Temple of Karnak and was moved
You don't
on a
have to do
sacred
nothing
boat
wrong, man.
to visit
When it
this
comes
temple.
down to it,
It's
you become a
Ipi
liability.
Grayson,
Why?
or Southern
Because you know
Harem.
too much.
Two
So what they'll
obelisks
do
stood at the
to cover
entrance to
their
the
asses,
temple.
they'll
Now
eliminate
only
you.
one remains,
If you go
but
back
it is
into
truly
history,
grand.
99%
Over 80 feet high and
of the
weighing more
victims
than
of the Mexican
230 tons.
have been their own
What happened
members.
to the second obelisk?
You can leave
Watching
the
over the
Tango Water
entrance
home,
are colossal
but there is
statues
no
of
way
Ramses
out of the
II,
Mexican Mafia,
the pharaoh who was a
except in a
fearless
body
warrior.
bag.
In the northwest corner of the
patch of the
temple's
Mexican
first
Mafia,
courtyard
they have a two-headed
is the
serpent.
mosque of Abu el
And that's
Haggad,
called blood in,
held
blood
in
out.
great esteem
One way
by
in,
Muslims.
one way out. You know, you have to commit an act to get in.
Among the
and
columns
one
here are
out,
statues of the pharaohs Amenhotep III and Ramses
Mike
II.
and Alfonso do want out, and they know the risks.
Here's what the entrance to
They've
the
been
Temple
moved
of
into a
Amun would
special
have
unit
looked like in
designed to
ancient
protect
times.
ex-mafia members.
The facade
know
was
they're
richly
not truly
decorated
safe.
with scenes from the epic battle fought by Ramses II against the
you.
Hittites in 1285
Now
BC
all they can do
in
is
Kadesh,
look over their
in
shoulders.
modern-day Syria. We can see now how the two massive obelisks would have dominated the entrance. The mystery of what had happened to the
Friday
second
afternoon.
obelisk was solved in
Concerned about the
1835
unpredictable Orahun gang,
when King
the
Mehmed
officers
Ali
decide to make a
presented it to
preemptive
King
strike.
Louis Philippe of France.
Sergeant Avila gives the orders
Less
for a
than 2
shakedown in the
miles
Orahun Union
separate
Pod
Luxor
BD.
from Karnak. the site of the enormous complex dedicated to a trinity of gods,
you think they're maybe hiding something? Strip them
Montu,
again.
and Mut.
Okay, these guys are working on our clock, all right? Okay. Try not to let the keys rattle too much. We don't
10
want them to know that we're
pylons,
coming in.
enormous surrounding walls, and hundreds of columns are laid out over a surface area that is more than 4,000 feet long and almost 2,000 feet wide, making this the largest temple ever built anywhere in the world. It took 2,000 years to build, and all of the pharaohs contributed something to the final layout. Once you enter the temple, you come to the biggest courtyard of all Egyptian temples, over 300 feet wide and 260 feet long.
Double them up, just the first 6 cells.
In the center of the courtyard, only one tall column survives of the 10 that made up the cloister.
Weapons, drugs.
These were built by Pharaoh Taharka around 670 BC.
Contraband,
this is where the sun boat was kept, which was used for the solemn processions from Karnak to Luxor.
We'll come in fast and hard with the CERT team, and then
Let's
we'll put
see how the
down.
site would have looked in all its majesty.
We'll put them away.
The cloister was composed of 10
bring them out of the
columns
cell,
that were each over 60 feet high. Behind the columns, you can see the decorations of the second pylon, which was erected by Ramses II. In the center was a pedestal on which the sacred boat containing the statue of the god Amun was
turns the
placed.
pod upside down.
The dimensions of this
we do a
area
cell
are
inside, it's a
simply
mess,
colossal.
but we're in a purpose. We're looking for something, and we get the job done.
Beyond the second
care what he
pylon,
says,
you
put
enter
him in
one of the most
handcuffs.
imposing monuments we have inherited from Egyptian art. The huge hypostyle,
Start pushing that
which
down,
was
let's go.
330 feet wide and 174 feet deep, with 134 columns.
These shakedowns are very important. It's how we find drugs,
Enormous
weapons,
architraves
escape plans.
raised the
We
height
had
of
a
the
plan
ceiling to
last year,
75 feet.
Several inmates had gotten together with
The
an
122
officer,
lateral
and they had
columns
picked up
with
saw blades, and they
papyrus-shaped
started cutting
capitals
through the
are
wrecked
lower.
roof, and we're gonna
This
escape.
made it
We found
possible to
clothing
put
that
in
they had
windows
dyed. We
that create
found the
amazing
blades that they
effects
used.
of
They were
light
gonna go
and
that
shadow.
night, and we were able to foil all that.
The
before it
decorative
happened
scenes on
because
the
of shakedown.
inside walls of the atrium, carved over 3,000 years ago, depict processions and coronation ceremonies.
There's a homemade tattoo ring. It's pretty simple, but it's effective.
Here we can see Ramses II paying homage to the Theban
The
divinities.
inmates do get creative and
The boat is
probably,
taken in a procession by the priests of
disciplinary
Amun,
actions.
dressed up as mythological beings.
Found it in the ramen noodle bag. I was crushing it up. Stuck the bolt in it. What happened is
The
So then we
central
found some
axis
tattoo
of the
rigs,
temple
which is
leads
what
to
they
the most
commonly use to
sacred part
tattoo
of the whole
themselves here in the jail.
complex,
Jailhouse
the
tattoos are
granite
really
room
important.
that held
You know,
the
this is how these
sacred
guys
book.
identify each other.
Gang tattoos stand out like a military uniform, declaring
This
who's
is
on
one of
which
the two
side of the
obelisks
battle.
erected by Queen Hatshepsut. Almost
wrong ones
100
will
feet
get you
high,
killed.
it is one of the tallest in all of ancient
In
Egypt.
the Autohones, it's often a 210
Upon
or a
her
spur.
death, her
The
stepson,
symbols of San
Pharaoh
Antonio's
Tutmos
area code
III,
for its pro
who
basketball
apparently
team.
detested her, had a wall built
The
around
mafia
the
here prefer
obelisk to
Aztec
obliterate
gods,
the memory of
two-headed
the dead
snakes.
queen.
And of course, the letters of Las Letras.
The festival
for the
hall
letter
built
M
for
in
Tutmos
Spanish.
III
Instead of
was
saying
later
Mexican
turned into
mafia,
a Christian
people would
church,
say, "I'm in
as
it."
is seen from the faces of the saints that can still be distinguished on the columns. Of the many rooms in the temple,
On the
one of the
second
most
floor,
interesting
the
is
CERT
known
team
as the
responds to a
Botanical
call for
Garden,
help.
because it is decorated with exotic plants and animals,
inmates in trouble,
in testimony
threatening to
to
hurt
the devotion displayed by pharaohs to their gardens and agriculture.
It's Jose Angel
This
Santos,
is the great
ex-Autohones gang
sacred
member.
lake, where the priests of Amun-Ra
He says
used to
he's cracking
purify
under the pressure.
themselves in the holy water that was channeled here from the Nile. This gigantic granite scarab, or beetle, was considered sacred by the Egyptians. It is said to be of good fortune if you walk around it.
Traumatized by that, maybe because I was one of the last persons that spoke to that guy.
Going back north now on the Nile, we come to Cairo,
As Jose opens
capital
up,
of modern
the officers
Egypt,
discover that
and a
just before
metropolis
they
of
got
almost
there, he
16
tried to
million
hang himself.
inhabitants.
Building up inside you, and you're just.
Cairo was never a capital
I got no
of
support from my
pharaohs.
family. I got nobody.
During their reign, there was only a small settlement here called Keriaha, which
For
means
Sergeant
place
Avila,
of
there are
battle.
no easy
A
answers
name it
here.
earned because, according to legend,
He wants to
it was where
understand
the
if
gods
Jose's tried to
Horus
kill
and
himself
Seth
before.
fought.
You ever tried to commit suicide in the past?
The only thing we know about the city's past is that around 400 BC it was
you cut
called
yourself with?
Babylonia
Sir,
and was
what
an
did you cut
important
yourself with?
commercial center.
Piece of glass?
If you
What was the
visit the
reason for that
Coptic
incident?
Quarter, one of the
Why
most
were you
ancient
doing
and
this?
picturesque
What's that?
parts
My
of
sister passed
Cairo,
away.
you'll see that it is inhabited
Okay.
today
Well,
by Orthodox
So you're
Christians.
gonna go down, you're gonna speak with mental health.
It contains one of the most
tell them what you
important
told me, let
temples
them know,
of
and then we'll go
Christianity,
from there, okay?
the
Let's do
church
it.
that
Walk
played
down.
host to the Holy Family and Jesus during their time in Egypt.
Depression. My last stay here, I stayed here about 8.5 months. I witnessed a lot of stuff. I had gotten
During the
jumped
Roman
twice.
domination, Emperor
And on the
Trajan
third
had a
time,
fortress
there was
built
4
here that
guys.
was
They
flanked
stomped my
by
head
2
into the ground. I
huge
got
round
scars
towers.
here on my arm.
The remains of the
Tennis
South
shoes
Tower have been
infection.
partially
They had kicked
restored,
me and stuff like
while the
this.
North Tower was incorporated
And,
into
I
the
was kind
Church of St.
traumatized
George.
by that. They put me in a one-man cell. Started hearing voices.
Further up the
couldn't cope
Nile,
with it.
where the river
So
hits the sea,
I did
is
attempt
Alexandria,
suicide.
the city founded by Alexander the Great in 332 BC.
I made 2 attempts to tie my shoes.
It is the last
fish it
capital
through
of
a
ancient
vent.
Egypt, and where Cleopatra, the
I
last
actually
direct
got
descendant of the
here,
pharaohs, lived and
stepped on
died.
this, and with the
Today,
pen,
with 6 million
with the
people,
pen, I actually
Alexandria
kinda like
is
made
the
a
second
hook,
largest city in Egypt.
tied real thin.
Though it is an
and
enchanting
fished it
spot,
through.
like most modern
I
cities,
tied
the
a knot there
chaotic
and then
traffic
tied
detracts somewhat from its
like a
appeal.
string about like this, so that it wouldn't move.
In ancient times, it was the site of a great library,
it
where
wasn't
thousands of
sturdy
scribes
enough.
worked,
So when I got
documenting
to
the ancient Egyptian lifestyle for
down here,
posterity.
I tried tying the knot
By
there,
and large, however,
and it just
the
would
splendor of
bust.
the ancient
The
city
sheet
has been
wouldn't take my
completely
body
buried under the modern
So
neighborhoods.
I failed.
A flimsy
There was
sheet
a
saved
famous
his life,
lighthouse,
this time.
the Pharos at Alexandria, built here in
No
279
one is sure he'll
BC,
try again.
that was subsequently damaged by earthquakes. In 1480, Sultan Qaitbay used most of its remains to construct this fortress,
Officer Rodriguez checks in on
masterpiece
the
of
unit of
military
former Mexican
architecture.
mafia members where Mike and
Some of the
Alfonso are
lighthouse's
housed.
granite columns can still be seen in the gate of the main tower, and in the surrounding
But when
walls
Rodriguez
that
pulls
plunge
another
into the sea.
ex-mafia member aside, the conversation takes a surprising
Today,
turn.
it is difficult to imagine the
The inmate
lighthouse
is
in all
not
of its
exactly
ancient
what he
splendor.
seems.
But when it was built,
we had you down as
it was almost
ex-mafia, but now you're saying you're active.
400 feet high.
So what are you? You
and became
prospecto,
one of the
carnal,
7
or
wonders of
you're
the
female?
world.
Okay, so you okay to go with those people?
Yeah.
Now, what about all this time you spent with
2 months
The
ago,
lighthouse was
this
one of
inmate said he
Cleopatra's
was out of the
favorites.
Mexican mafia.
This
but
was
now
her
he's
city,
revealing he
the city
never
she
left.
loved more than the Roman
He
generals
was just
she
pretending
courted.
to have retired.
We saw those incidents going on.
He
With
did
her
it for a
suicide
reason.
in 30 BC
Murder.
came the end of
I was trying to go for
3,000
one
years
guy,
of
but
rule
maybe
by
I
the
didn't say name,
Pharaohs.
but I couldn't. I never got. be
Egypt
able to be
lost her
close to him.
independence
Can you tell me who ordered
and
you to
became
do
a
that?
province
Oh
of the
no, I
Roman
can't say who
Empire.
ordered me, but
Okay, and why couldn't you get to him?
As time
Maybe
went
there
by,
was there
many
was
of the cities
chances,
of the
you know,
pharaohs were abandoned
I
and
was trying
slowly
to get
fell
close to
into
him, but
ruin.
getting moved at a group.
The simple
but I
houses
never-
built with mud bricks disappeared.
He was on
And
orders
many
from
of
the
the
mafia
monuments
to work his way
became open-air
inside the
quarries,
ex-members pod
their
and
stones
kill one.
used to make other buildings.
It could be Mike or
Stones were
Alfonso.
even removed
He won't
from the
reveal his
magnificent
target.
pyramids.
They told me to do it, but like if I wanted to, and I
The
jumped up
madrasa
on
of
it.
Sultan
I thought you
Hassan
can't do
in
that
the
in
city
county
of
jail. I
Cairo
thought you can't
was built
clean
with
up in county
stones
jail
from
like
the
that.
pyramids in 1362.
Now, by doing so, that would have progressed
It
you
was
up
a sort of
to
university
prospect.
college,
So do you have a
and its design is considered a
Murder is
masterpiece
just the
of
price you
Islamic
pay to show your
architecture.
loyalty to the Mexican mafia.
The palace is perfectly proportioned, and its beauty owes a
just
lot
felt
to
that
the
they were showing me
stones
more love
removed
than
from
my
the
real
pyramids
family.
and used in
Money
its
and
construction.
cars and girls
This was a
and all that.
destiny that befell other monuments in the capital over the course of centuries,
Will kill you.
as magnificent works
You got
created
people
by
waiting
the
in line to join the
pharaohs
Mexican
were
mafia.
dismantled.
And you have to have blood on
But
your
still
hands
today
in order
in
to be a
Egypt,
Mexican mafia
the
member.
past and present come together
So that right here says
as
that you're
in no
affiliated
other
with Mexican
country in
mafia?
the world.
And this
The
doesn't
writers
authorize me to
or
house you back to
scribes
the
from that
Mexican
time
mafia. Sign
have
here,
left
and
us
this
with
where
a
it says
treasure trove of literature that documents the amazing episodic adventures
After failing to
of
commit the hit,
pharaohs and
this
queens,
gangbanger wants to go
of
back
great
to his
loves
friends in the
and tragic
active Mexican
battles,
mafia unit.
and gods for every purpose. Their writings challenge the passing of the centuries,
For Mike
and
and
in a
Alfonso,
way,
the
proclaim
situation
the
is looking more
immortality
precarious than
that
ever.
was sought by the pharaohs.
There may be hit orders out on them. 9 a.m., Friday. Avila's CERT team gets a call. Inmates are acting out. In any war, there's collateral damage.
The discovery of the Bonampak frescoes unraveled mysteries on the customs and traditions of a civilization that had developed over a period of nearly 3,000 years. The civilization that reached its height between 200 and 900 AD.
Get on the ground.
And then experienced a relentless decline until it almost completely disappeared around 1500, a little before the Spanish conquistadors arrived. The cities were abandoned, slowly swallowed up by the jungle. Yet the people who once lived in them had not disappeared. They merely scattered throughout the region now known as the Yucatan Peninsula in present-day Mexico, where the ancient traditions of the Maya are still present. Archaeologist John Lloyd Stevens wrote these words in his diary on May 11, 1840, about his expedition to Mexico.
Jose attempted
In the
suicide.
history of the world, nothing impressed me more than the sight of this big and attractive city, now
Jose feels at
barren
risk in
and
general
lost.
population. They can't put him in with the gangs.
Stevens had set off many months
And he
earlier
doesn't
on the
want to go
tracks
into
of
protective
stories
custody
about cities
for fear that it might
hidden
label
in
him
the
as a
wild
snitch
tropical
and make him
jungle,
more of a
and
target.
people who had mysteriously
That is a
disappeared.
quote-unquote jacket.
His journey
that
through
you carry
uncharted
with you
terrain must have been
throughout any
difficult,
jail or
with scorching
prison or wherever you
temperatures
go,
and
it
thick
follows you. Somebody will
vegetation.
know you wherever you go.
And though on previous trips
The
he had
officers
examined
decide to place him
Egyptian
in the
pyramids,
homosexual
ancient
pod.
monuments in Italy, and Greek temples in
They
Athens,
ran out of options.
it was
They
here
would no
in
longer
the
house
jungles
me in
of
a
Central
general
America
population
that he
with
was
other gang
overwhelmed
members.
by an intense
Because
feeling of
classification had to take
astonishment.
the precaution. They would have been able to justify why I
He
got
walked out
beat
of the
up.
forest and suddenly
Jose has 3
realized that he
children
had
with 3
reached the
different women.
ruins of an
But now
ancient
he's in
Maya
with the gay
city,
population.
Palenque.
It's the only place he might be safe, given his gang past.
I was kind of forced into a homosexual pod because of my past experiences. On several occasions I got jumped.
Stevens and an architect, Frederick Catherwood, who painted watercolors of the
Even as
area,
a solo,
were
they
breathless
wouldn't
when
leave
they
me
saw
alone
the
because
city's
I was
sacred
an
grounds.
ex-member.
It was clear that
So
only
Jose is
men
left
with
in his new
ingenious minds could have planned
Unsure
this
just
city,
what will happen next.
and that expert hands had built it. It was also clear that a whole new era of scholarship
In this
on an
special pod on the
unexplored
2nd floor,
civilization would
ex-gang
now
members have
present
banded
itself.
together for protection.
Gods and goddesses, rulers and heroes,
Still,
an
they
entire
know that it's
account of
open
hidden
season
Maya
on them.
culture and mythic history.
Alfonso is aware that the Mexican mafia has a standing hit-out on him. What he didn't know when he came to this unit
At the time of its
was that his
splendor,
own cell
Palenque
was
covered an
supposed to
area of
murder
over
him.
6 square miles with a population
I
of
was ordered to
tens
kill
of
this guy
thousands.
2 times. I refused to do it. And I told him, look,
The most
man,
important structures
look at
date
this-
from the
look what
period
this guy's
between
trying to do
630
here.
and 700 AD, when Kin
and,
Pakal
they were
and
trying
his
to say
son
that he was a
Shan
snitch.
Balum ruled the
He
kingdom.
was cooperating.
I owe him my life. You know, he saved my life.
When they
The
was
palace,
meeting,
the home of the
they
royal
were supposed to
family,
kill this guy
was erected in the
because
city center on a
supposedly he was an
33-foot
informant.
high platform.
But later I
The
found out
palace
that it
in
wasn't
reality
true.
was just a group
What
of
it
various
was is
buildings
the
built
main
one
guy was
against
just
the other.
trying to
But in
cure
its
his-
own way,
save his.
it was an
He
architectural
wasn't sure, he didn't want to
masterpiece,
take no
with
chances, so he
cellars,
said, you know
chambers, and rooms with rather
Better
low
safe
ceilings
now,
arranged
sorry
around
later.
a courtyard.
So, you know, kill this guy.
The bas-reliefs
This time I had
that
already
decorate
lost
the
faith.
walls
I
are
said, you know
still
what?
striking
The hell
today,
with you guys.
even
I
though
was
many of the
contacting
colors,
the man,
which
we want
Stevens
you
and
back.
Catherwood
All you
marveled
gotta do is
about,
kill yourself.
have almost completely faded.
The reason
Some
I'm
glyphs,
not
the
so,
round-figured ideograms which
shocked
Maya writing is composed of,
is because,
were carved into the steps
you know,
of the
what
middle
he's talking
court,
about, I
while
already
along the
lived it.
walls, stone plates were decorated
You know,
with
and-
images
and, you
of
know,
prisoners who must
I've
have
seen
been
it done,
high-ranking
and I've
officials,
seen
judging
people
from their rich
experience that.
garments.
So, you know, I mean,
From the
some of my
western
best
side of the
friends were
palace
killed,
is a full
you know,
view of the
and
majestic temple of the
sad
inscriptions.
to say that, you know, I mean,
Can you imagine
In
going to a
1952,
bar,
archaeologist Alberto Ruiz made an incredible
eating dinner with
discovery
his
inside this
family,
pyramid-like
Christmas, New
structure.
Year's, and
On the upper platform, he discovered a deep passage, a kind of tunnel that penetrated into the pyramid. The tunnel had been blocked for centuries by tons of earth and stones, so the descent into the depths of the structure was difficult and dangerous.
When anyone can turn on you at any moment.
After months of digging,
Mike and Alfonso
Alberto
can't be
Ruiz
sure
descended
where
the entire
will be
length
coming
of the
from
tunnel.
next.
He reached an underground room where he discovered a great sarcophagus containing the tomb of King Kin Kapan, who lived at Palenque in 700
second
AD.
floor of the county jail.
It was one of the most important.
Officers
For the
can sense
inhabitants of
movement in the pod
Palenque,
is getting
the most
worse.
important buildings in the city were those making up a group now called the
Something
Cross
bad
Group.
is coming.
It is composed of 3 rectangular buildings surmounted by a crest-like structure. They are temples dedicated to Maya divinities, though they're named to a mistake made by the first discoverers who mistook the symbol of the Seba, the cosmic tree of the Maya, for the Christian cross. At the height of its splendor, this grand architecture in the middle of a dense jungle must have been a truly impressive sight. All the buildings were painted red to the Maya